Most people believe they control their lives with logic, decisions, and willpower. But the truth is far more surprising. Almost everything you do, everything you think, and every result you create is controlled by a hidden system inside your mind, a system operating silently beneath your awareness. If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same patterns, why some goals feel impossible no matter how hard you try, or why you sometimes feel stuck without knowing why, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because of the subconscious mind. And once you understand how it really works, you unlock the power to change absolutely everything. The first thing you need to know is this. Your conscious mind, the part you're using right now to listen, think, and analyze, is extremely small. In fact, it controls only about 5% of your life. The other 95% is run by your subconscious. Think of your conscious mind like the captain of a ship, and your subconscious like the entire crew. The captain can give orders, but the crew is the one actually steering the ship, maintaining it, keeping it running, and ultimately deciding how effectively the ship moves. If the crew is trained to go in a certain direction, the ship will drift there automatically, even if the captain tries to change the course. That's why you can want something consciously, more confidence, more success, better habits, but struggle to change your behavior. Your conscious mind wants one thing, but your subconscious is operating on old instructions. Your subconscious is always working, even when you're not thinking about it. It's the part of your mind that allows you to drive a car while daydreaming, walk without thinking, talk without planning every word, and respond to life instantly. It's fast, automatic, and powerful. But here's the catch. It doesn't judge or question. Whatever gets repeated to it, whatever is emotionally intense, whatever you experience again and again, it stores as a truth, even if it's not true at all. If you heard you're shy, you're not good enough, success is hard, or people like us don't do that often enough, your subconscious accepted it as a program. And now, without you realizing it, those programs shape your actions, your reactions, your confidence, your habits, and ultimately, your results. This is why people get stuck in cycles. They aren't broken, they're simply running old programming. The subconscious mind doesn't care about what you want, it cares about what's familiar. If it learned that stress is normal, you'll recreate stress. If it learned that money is scarce, you'll subconsciously push money away. If it learned that you should stay small, you'll find ways to shrink your opportunities. It's not your fault, it's your system. And that system was installed when you were too young to understand what was happening. But here's the good news, and it's the promise of this video. Once you see how your subconscious controls your results, you can begin to take that control back. The moment you understand how the mechanism works, you stop trying to force change with willpower, and you start working with the part of your mind that actually drives your life. Because the subconscious is not your enemy, it's simply following the instructions it was given. And if you're willing to give it new instructions, consistently and intentionally, it will reshape your reality in ways that feel effortless. Think about every time you've tried to change something, wake up earlier, get healthier, stop procrastinating, build confidence, and felt like you were fighting yourself. You weren't fighting yourself. You were fighting your subconscious programming. And the subconscious always wins because it's stronger, faster, and built for survival. It says, no, this isn't who we are, and it pulls you back to your old identity. That's why change feels like climbing uphill with a heavy backpack. But once you align your subconscious with your goals, the uphill battle turns into a natural path. You stop trying to force yourself to be different, and instead, you automatically act like the kind of person who gets the results you want. This chapter is your doorway to that shift. It's your chance to see the mind honestly, not as something mystical or complicated, but as a machine with a clear structure. And when you understand that structure, you can change it. You'll see that your results are not random, they're produced by internal patterns. You'll see that your thoughts are not just thoughts, they are instructions to your subconscious. You'll see that your emotions are not weaknesses, they are signals and programming tools. You'll see that your habits are not accidents, they are automatic scripts your subconscious runs because it believes they keep you safe. And most importantly, you'll see that your identity, the person you believe you are, is not fixed. It's a pattern your subconscious learned, which means it can unlearn it, and it can learn something new. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how this hidden system shapes every result in your life. You'll understand why you think the way you think, why you repeat the behaviors you repeat, and why certain goals feel easy while others feel impossible. And you'll know what it takes to reprogram the mechanism so your subconscious becomes your partner instead of your obstacle. If you commit to understanding this, you'll unlock a level of personal power most people never discover. Your results will change not because you force them to, but because your mind finally supports them. That is the promise, and it starts right now.
You weren't born with the beliefs you have today. You didn't come into the world thinking you're good at certain things and bad at others. You didn't naturally believe that money is hard to earn, that love is complicated, that failure is scary, or that you should stay within a certain comfort zone. All of that was installed into you long before you understood what was happening. Your subconscious mind was shaped during a period of your life when you had zero control. And the most surprising part? Most of those old programs are still running today, influencing almost every result you get. From the moment you were born until around the age of 7, your brain was in a state that scientists call theta. It's the same state people enter during hypnosis or deep meditation. In that state, your mind doesn't judge anything. It doesn't question anything. It simply absorbs. You were basically a walking recorder. Every sound, every tone, every behavior, every emotion around you was being downloaded directly into your subconscious. If your environment was full of safety, encouragement, and confidence, your subconscious stored that as normal. If your environment was full of stress, fear, criticism, or uncertainty, your subconscious stored that as normal too. Not because it was true, but because you had no filter. That's why childhood experiences shape people so differently. Two siblings in the same house can grow up with completely different beliefs, all based on what they interpreted, felt, and absorbed. Maybe you were told to be quiet, or that you were too much or not enough. Maybe you tried something as a child, failed once, and someone laughed. Your mind remembered that. Maybe you saw adults struggling with money, fighting about bills, or talking about how hard life is. Your mind remembered that. Maybe the people around you were nervous, fearful, or always stressed. Your mind didn't just remember, it accepted that as the way life works. The subconscious doesn't care whether something is empowering or limiting. It only cares about repetition and emotion. If something happened often enough, or if it carried strong feelings, good or bad, it formed a program. And those programs became the blueprint for how you see yourself, how you see others, and how you move through the world. You didn't choose your early programming, you inherited it. You absorbed the beliefs, habits, fears, and emotional patterns of the people around you. If they worried, you learned to worry. If they settled, you learned to settle. If they doubted themselves, you learned to doubt yourself. Even now, many of your current reactions, the things that feel automatic, are old patterns you never consciously agreed to. And this is one of the biggest reasons people feel stuck. You're trying to build a new life using old instructions. Think of your subconscious like the operating system of a computer. Before you ever tried to run a program or create something new, the system already had rules installed. Those rules determine what's possible and what's not. If your subconscious programming says, "I'm not confident," then every time you try to act confident, it blocks you. If your programming says success is for other people, then every time you level up, you'll feel resistance. If your programming says, "I'm not lovable enough," then every time someone gets close to you, your mind will sabotage the connection, not because you want to, but because your subconscious is trying to protect the version of you it believes is real. This is why you can want change with your conscious mind, but still fall back into old habits. You're not lazy, you're not lacking discipline, you're simply living with programming you did not choose, created at a time when you didn't even understand what a belief was. And the subconscious always prioritizes what feels familiar over what feels new, even if the familiar is holding you back. Familiar equals safe, new equals risky. That's the rule your mind follows. But here's the important part. Your subconscious programming is not permanent. It might feel powerful, but it's not fixed. It was installed through repetition and emotion, and it can be changed the same way. Once you understand that your beliefs are not facts but learned patterns, you stop being a victim of your past. You stop repeating what was handed to you. Instead, you start choosing what you want your mind to believe. Everything you're struggling with today, procrastination, fear, negative self-talk, self-doubt, perfectionism, or overthinking, didn't appear out of nowhere. They came from moments, experiences, and messages you internalized long ago. But once you see that clearly, you gain something most people never discover: the power to rewrite the story. You don't have to carry old programming into the rest of your life. You don't have to live with beliefs that were installed when you were too young to understand them. You can upgrade your subconscious, update your identity, and create a new mental blueprint that supports the results you want instead of fighting against them. And that's the promise of this chapter. Because once you understand how your mind was formed, you can finally stop blaming yourself for patterns you did not consciously create. You can look at your life with clarity instead of confusion. And as we move forward, you'll learn how to replace those old instructions with new ones that align with your goals, your growth, and the future you want to build. Because the real power begins when you stop being defined by your past programming and start choosing your own. That's what the rest of this video will show you: the exact mechanism of how thoughts turn into results and how you can reprogram the subconscious system that has been running your life for years. This is where change truly begins.
Most people think their results come from effort. They believe success is about trying harder, pushing more, or thinking positively. But the truth is far more structured than that. There is an actual mechanism in your mind that produces every result you get. It doesn't matter whether the result is good or bad, intentional or accidental, it always follows the same pattern. Your thoughts create emotions, your emotions fuel your actions, and your actions create your results. Then, those results reinforce your original thoughts. This loop is running 24/7, whether you realize it or not. The reason this matters is simple. If you understand the loop, you can change the loop. But if you don't understand it, you get stuck in cycles that feel impossible to break. And the biggest mistake people make is assuming their thoughts are harmless or random. They're not. Every thought is a message to your subconscious mind, telling it what to expect, what to fear, what to move toward, and what to avoid. And because your subconscious wants to confirm whatever it believes, it filters your reality to match those thoughts. Imagine someone who secretly believes they're not good enough. Even if they have potential, the subconscious will make them notice every sign of doubt, every mistake, every flaw. Not because it's true, but because their mind is trying to confirm the belief. Emotions follow the belief. Insecurity, hesitation, anxiety, those emotions shape their actions, playing small, avoiding risks, procrastinating, pulling back. And those actions obviously create a result that looks like failure or stagnation. That result becomes proof that the belief was correct, and the cycle continues. Now, imagine someone who believes opportunities always show up for them. Their subconscious filters life differently. They notice doors opening, they feel confident, they approach situations with energy. They take actions that align with expectation, and those actions create results that reinforce the belief. This isn't magic, it's the psychology of the subconscious loop. The loop always starts at the same point, the thought. Not the loud thoughts you hear in your head, but the quiet ones running in the background. The subconscious doesn't respond to what you say you want, it responds to what you actually believe. If you say, "I want to succeed," but your deeper identity says, "I don't think I can," the subconscious listens to the deeper voice, because emotions come from beliefs, not from wishes. Your emotions are not random feelings, they are signals. They reveal what the subconscious is holding. When you feel excitement, confidence, or motivation, it's because your subconscious believes something is safe, possible, or aligned with your identity. When you feel fear, avoidance, or resistance, it's because your subconscious believes something threatens your identity. Most people misinterpret emotion as personality. They say, "I'm an anxious person," or "I'm not motivated." But those are not personality traits. They are emotional responses coming from subconscious beliefs. Once emotion kicks in, it shapes your actions automatically.
Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to take action when you feel confident? Or how you avoid everything when you feel overwhelmed? That's not because you changed as a person, it's because your emotional state changed. And once the emotional state changes, your behavior follows instantly. The subconscious doesn't wait for logical explanations. It reacts fast, pulling you toward what feels safe and away from what feels threatening. Those actions or lack of actions create your results, and results are powerful because they look concrete, they look like facts. If you try something and fail, your subconscious says, "See, I told you this wasn't for us." If you succeed easily, it says, "See, we're good at this." But the truth is, the result wasn't the root cause. It was the final step in a long internal process that started with a belief you may not even be aware of. This is why repeating affirmations doesn't work when your subconscious believes the opposite. You can say, "I'm confident," 1,000 times, but if your subconscious is holding a different identity, your emotions and actions won't match the words. The loop always obeys the deeper belief, and whatever identity your subconscious holds, your life will match it. But here's the important part. Once you become aware of the loop, you can interrupt it. You can notice the belief behind a pattern, question it, and replace it. When you change the belief, the emotion changes. When the emotion changes, the actions change. And when the actions change, the results shift. And those new results reinforce the new belief. That's when change becomes automatic instead of forced. That's when you stop feeling like you're fighting yourself and start feeling like you're finally aligned with yourself. The biggest promise of understanding this loop is that you never have to guess why your life looks the way it does. Every result you have right now, financial, emotional, physical, relational, comes from a pattern in this loop. And if you don't like the results, you don't need more discipline or motivation. You need a new subconscious pattern. And that's what the next chapter will teach you. The actual steps to rewire your subconscious so that the loop works for you, not against you. Once you learn how to install new beliefs, create new emotional patterns, and align your identity with the life you want, everything becomes easier. Actions feel natural, progress becomes automatic, and your results finally match your potential.
Most people try to change their lives by forcing themselves into new habits, repeating positive phrases, or pushing through resistance with willpower. And while these things might work for a few days, they never last. The reason is simple. You cannot overpower your subconscious mind by fighting it. You can only rewire it by working with it. If the subconscious is the engine that drives your life, then rewiring it is about changing the fuel, not kicking the car harder. The good news is that the subconscious is not rigid or stubborn. It's incredibly flexible. It has one job: keep you aligned with the identity it believes you are. So if you learn how to shift that identity, the subconscious automatically updates everything else: your habits, your emotions, your reactions, your behaviors. The first thing to understand is that the subconscious learns through repetition and emotion, not logic. You can logically analyze your fears, but that doesn't erase them. You can logically explain success to yourself, but that doesn't make you feel worthy. You can logically say you want to change, but your subconscious listens only to what feels familiar and what gets repeated. This is why simply saying affirmations doesn't work. If you say, "I am confident," but your subconscious feels insecure, the words don't match the feeling, so the subconscious rejects it. Rewiring starts when your thoughts and emotions begin aligning instead of contradicting each other. One of the most powerful tools for this is mental rehearsal. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one, as long as the emotion is real. When you consistently imagine yourself acting like the person you want to be, with the feelings, confidence, posture, tone, and behavior, your subconscious begins adopting that image as familiar. It learns, this is who we are now. And once the subconscious accepts a new identity, your actions start shifting automatically. If you vividly rehearse giving a confident speech, your subconscious builds pathways that make confidence easier in real life. If you rehearse being disciplined, your brain starts reducing resistance toward those behaviors.
Mental rehearsal is basically pre-programming your mind for success before life even asks for it. Another powerful method is emotional anchoring. Whenever you feel a strong positive emotion, excitement, pride, courage, your subconscious is highly open to learning in that moment. If you connect that emotion to a new identity statement, it becomes a subconscious imprint. For example, after completing a task you were avoiding, say to yourself with emotion, "This is who I am now, someone who takes action." The emotion makes the statement stick. Every strong emotional moment is an opportunity to install a new belief. Most people waste these moments, but if you use them intentionally, you can rewrite your identity much faster. The next tool is changing your environment. Your subconscious absorbs whatever it sees repeatedly, even when you're not paying attention. If your environment reflects your old identity, your subconscious keeps reinforcing that identity. But if you change small things around you, the places you spend time, the people you interact with, the content you consume, the reminders you see, your identity begins shifting because the subconscious reads your environment as evidence of who you are. A simple example, if you want to become healthier, put visible reminders in your environment that support that identity. If you want to become more focused, remove the clutter or distractions that visually reinforce the opposite identity. Every environmental cue is a subconscious instruction. Micro-behavior stacking is another game changer. Your subconscious responds better to small, consistent actions than one big, dramatic one. If you try to change too much too fast, your subconscious panics because it senses a threat to your identity. But if you change one tiny behavior at a time, one small action that aligns with your new identity, your subconscious adapts without feeling threatened. Over time, these small behaviors pile up and completely reshape your identity. Want to become disciplined? Start by doing one tiny task at the same time each day. Want to become confident? Start by holding eye contact for 1 extra second. Want to become successful? Start by completing one meaningful action daily. Tiny steps feel safe, and when something feels safe, the subconscious accepts it faster. The biggest mistake people make is trying to change what they do before changing who they believe they are. But the subconscious always acts to protect identity. If your identity says you're inconsistent, your subconscious will sabotage consistency. If your identity says you're shy, it will block confidence. If your identity says you're unworthy, it will reject opportunities. Rewiring only works when you flip the sequence. Identity first, action second. When you begin telling your subconscious a new story through repetition, emotion, environment, and small actions, it eventually accepts that story. And once it accepts it, that identity drives new habits effortlessly. What makes rewiring so powerful is that it removes the struggle. You don't have to force yourself to change. Instead, the change becomes natural because your subconscious is no longer fighting you. Think about how easy it is to act like yourself. Once the new identity becomes yourself, you stop overthinking, doubting, and resisting. You simply act in alignment with who you believe you are. By the end of this process, your subconscious starts working for you, not against you. And this is where transformation becomes real. Not temporary, not forced, not exhausting, but automatic. And in the next chapter, you'll see how to take all of this even deeper by changing your identity at the core so your results shift permanently. This is the real secret behind every lasting change, becoming the version of you that naturally creates the life you want.
Every meaningful change in your life begins with one shift. The shift in who you believe you are, not who you say you are, not who you want to be, but the identity your subconscious has accepted as "this is me." That identity quietly controls everything: your habits, your choices, your reactions, your confidence, your limits, and the results you create. And the reason many people stay stuck for years is because they're trying to change their lives without changing the identity that produces those lives. They want new outcomes, but they keep showing up as the same version of themselves that created the old outcomes. Nothing changes until the identity changes.
Identity is powerful because it serves as your internal rulebook. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you'll find ways to struggle even when things are going well. If you see yourself as someone who never finishes things, your mind will sabotage completion. If you see yourself as someone who can't grow, every challenge will feel like proof you're right. But the opposite is just as true. If you see yourself as disciplined, you act disciplined. If you see yourself as confident, you naturally behave confidently. If you see yourself as worthy of success, you pursue bigger opportunities without hesitation. Your identity is not just a belief, it's the lens through which you interpret reality. Most people don't realize that their identity was built without their permission. It came from childhood labels, experiences, failures, fears, and the opinions of others. Maybe you were called quiet, so you became quiet. Maybe you were told you weren't smart, so you stopped trying. Maybe you failed once, and your mind decided failure defines you. Maybe you were embarrassed, and your mind decided it's safer to hide. These moments become stories. Stories become patterns. Patterns become identity. And once the identity forms, the subconscious works day and night to keep you consistent with it. Not because it loves the identity, but because it loves familiarity. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your identity is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not the real you. It's just a story your subconscious learned. And stories can be rewritten. What you're really doing when you shift your identity is choosing a new story, one that matches the life you actually want instead of the life you've been stuck in. The process begins with a simple question. Who do you want to become? Not what do you want to achieve. Achievements come later. First, you choose the version of yourself that naturally produces those achievements. If you want to be successful, who is the version of you that succeeds? How do they think? How do they walk? How do they talk? What habits feel natural to them? What do they believe about themselves? What do they no longer tolerate? When you get clear on that identity, you have a blueprint. Identity shifts don't happen through motivation or force. They happen through alignment. You gradually begin acting, thinking, and feeling like the identity you're stepping into, even before you feel ready. And every time you align with the new identity, even in a small way, your subconscious takes note. It says, "Oh, this is us now." The more you repeat those aligned behaviors, the faster the shift happens. A new identity doesn't form through big dramatic changes. It forms through small, consistent signals, tiny actions, repeated thoughts, new emotional responses, different choices, clearer boundaries, and upgraded self-talk. Imagine you want to become the version of yourself who is organized and disciplined. You don't start by trying to overhaul your entire life. You start with one tiny behavior, maybe making your bed in the morning or completing a 5-minute task daily. Each time you do it, you're not just completing a task, you're sending a message to your subconscious. I'm the kind of person who follows through. Repeat that enough times, and your subconscious accepts it as identity. And once it becomes identity, you no longer have to force discipline. It becomes automatic. Identity shifts also happen when you remove the old story. You stop repeating the labels that limit you. You stop saying things like, "I'm just not that type of person," or "I've always been like this," or "This is just who I am." Those statements freeze your identity in place. If you want to transform, you must begin talking about yourself as the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. That small change in language has massive subconscious power. The most important part of identity work is proof. Your subconscious needs evidence, not huge evidence, small evidence. When you act in alignment with your new identity, even once, that is proof. When you catch an old habit and choose differently, that is proof. When you speak confidently for a moment, that is proof. Every piece of proof builds the new identity. And over time, the identity stops being something you're trying to become. It becomes who you naturally are. When the identity shifts, your results follow automatically. You don't have to force confidence. You simply express it. You don't have to push yourself to be consistent. Consistency becomes normal. You don't have to pretend to be successful. You behave like someone who succeeds. Everything becomes easier because you're no longer swimming against your own programming.
This is the real secret behind people who transform their lives. They didn't just change their habits, they became a different version of themselves. And the moment your identity aligns with your future instead of your past, the subconscious mind becomes your most powerful ally. It stops pulling you backwards and starts propelling you forward. Your life will always match the identity you hold, so choose the identity intentionally, build it consciously, reinforce it daily. Because once you become the version of yourself who naturally creates the results you want, the rest of your life begins to change effortlessly. And that is the real power of the subconscious mind. It makes your identity your destiny.